I showed you the walkthrough earlier, and there was some areas where there was a little bit of moisture. And when we walked through it again, we noticed that that moisture was from where there were stumps taken out, and that consistently the rest of the soil was pretty dry. And the key to that is that this area was actually drawn out quite well and tracked in at a contour or a level. Now that's done in order to facilitate the earthworks itself. So what does that mean? Well, if this bund, which is new soil, is not properly compacted, the space between the clay will hold water. That water doesn't compact at all. Basically, water, if you push against it, it pushes back equal pressure. You can compress water quite a bit and it will store the energy of the compression. So in this particular area, since it was built up soil, the area you're seeing on the screen right now, because it was built up soil, it's going to be softer and not as compact as soil that over here for thousands of years or hundreds of years has been compacted. So you're really never going to be able to get the bund as compacted as the natural earth and soil. So you don't want to dig down too deep in the earth and soil. What you can see right now is happening is he's collecting up some earth that he's then going to take out of the high spot and then bring down to the low spot. So rather than tracking over the low spot a lot and running a lot of distance, he's actually building up this mound in the middle so that he can pull off and spend a lot of his back and forth time layering in soil on the level. So what do I mean by on the level? Now this is very important to understand that the compaction of the soil must happen on a level ground in order to stay stable, because when we have a rain event, the water will find the microscopic cracks in the compaction, and then if it's running downhill, it can build up a little bit of speed and a little bit of energy. Any water that's trapped in the soil because of the compaction will then rejoin with the water from the air and the rain, and next thing you know, you're going to have a blowout. So it'll saturate like jelly mud and then blow out. So part of what we're doing here is making sure that we're using the clay soil. So there's a big difference between the topsoil and the clay soil. All the topsoil was removed and used as our brush barrier to keep our silt from moving. And then the clay soil is being harvested and used as part of our foundation, because the clay compacts and becomes hard as you push the air out of the soil and you push the water out of the soil. But you can't really push the water out. You really need to push the air out only. And then we end up with a nice bund at the bottom. So that's a clay bridge. So it's up, across, and down, where it's solid clay holding this in place. Now, compacted clay does not drain, so it will hold water in a lens above here. So we want to make sure that the area above is as natural a soil as possible, so that it drains properly and so that it doesn't hold a lot of water, and that there's an escape route around this bund. So this bund is larger than the area it's necessary, so that the water can relieve itself by coming out these side channels. So there will be moist points out here, and there aren't that many because the soil's pretty strong, but there'll be moist weeping out here, or in the hill itself. The water will soak underground and come out way downhill somewhere. So we didn't just pick this pad randomly. We actually picked this pad part of a design plan that takes into account the elevation of this location. So we're about 1,000-foot elevation, and it takes part of understanding that we're upslope from a normal drain field or a normal water drainage way. We mapped out a lot of stuff before we just got out here and started digging. So if you're thinking about doing a project like this, there is a plan that's involved, that's drawn up and reviewed in advance. Now, who reviews your plan? Well, it just depends on what you're doing. In this case, it's an agricultural building, and it's not, the weight of the building is distributed over a large area. It's a gravel floor. It's not a permanent living structure. So we don't need the requirements in this particular area. We don't need the compaction requirements and stuff that's typically necessary if you're going to build a building. In the case of this particular site, we are trying to stay within certain criteria as far as compaction is concerned, but the equipment we have is only going to compact it so much. So we again have to layer in materials and then compact it in sections. And then as long as the hill can hold this equipment with a certain amount of moisture in it, then we're good to go. We don't need to be rock solid, because if we were to build a permanent building, we still have our original soil in the majority of our terrace. Okay, this is very important. We're not growing stuff on this terrace. We have our original soil in the majority of the terrace, so somebody like a pole building builder or a home manufacturer or a general contractor can still pier or put a foundation in the property that would go deep enough into the original soil to meet the requirements that a general contractor would have or that zoning would have. So here's the last point I want to make. It's a very important point. The only fill in this project is probably 12 feet wide and 3 or 4 feet tall. So the rest of it is the original hill, the original soil. And so that's how you can do a project like this without having a lot of disturbance. But most importantly is still have a drawing and a plan and still have it reviewed just in case. So we might be showing you these videos and there's just 2 of us working out here, but there's probably 8 to 10 people that are involved in the design. And then of course there's years of experience that helps make this kind of project successful. I know I covered quite a bit here, but it's been 2 days since the last rain. We verified the soil, making sure we pointed out any soft spots. We're not digging and refilling our original clay content. We're focusing on a solid bund that's level and runs water off properly. We have our silt fences in place, and the overall structure that's necessary to support something of much larger size is being maintained while it's not necessary for the particular building that we're putting in. The 2 containers that are coming in here can go on a gravel pad, and we'll talk about the pad when it starts to dig that one out. And then the building can be built over top of it at a later date. So folks, we're giving you these videos to eliminate excuses. We don't want you to wait. Now is the time to start getting that land together. Now, it could be a much smaller pad if we had more trees cleared, or it could have been a much different configuration if we were going to build a house. But it's perfect for what we're doing. Our focus right now is getting feed storage and equipment storage so that we can start running animals on this particular agricultural piece of land. We've worked through the plan. You don't need a building permit for a agricultural property, but it could be different in your zoning. But we're making the investment now because it's going to be more expensive in the future, and then the investment is designed to cash flow the particular activity. So instead of building a house and building a barn and building everything else, we put all that on paper, and then we're building the key components that get us started. And then worst case scenario, I'll be out here in a wall tent taking care of goats like an old goat man in the woods. And I'm okay with that because we have the infrastructure coming together. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you've got questions about what we're doing here, if you're excited to do this on your own land and you're in our region and you like to talk about your plan, or even if you're out of the region, our time is kind of limited because we're doing projects like this on 3 or 4 farms that are under management. The key is do it now. This is not a project you can do in the winter. This is a project we have to do in the spring and summer, and we have to work around the rains. This is not a project you want to have not finished by winter, but it's something you can do. It's not impossible. And if you've got the right advisory group, if you've got the right farm management experience, if you've got the right design, which you can get all that stuff before you even have land, you could have something like this done in 3 to 4 months, be on the land with animals, be securing your food, securing your agricultural aspirations, and ultimately be up and running. This isn't the only thing that you need to do, but we want to show you this project so you can see that it's entirely possible. This was trees at the beginning of the project, and be sure to go through the video, subscribe and all that stuff so you can see the other parts. But this was just scrub brush and trees, and now it's a big open pad it's on the home stretch when it comes to getting these buildings in. And we're going to take you every step of the way. You won't find this kind of content anywhere else, because this is something that we're doing on real farms, and ultimately not something that everybody wants to do. If you can avoid doing this, that's okay. But it is definitely something that's worthwhile if you do it the right way. If you do it wrong, that bund liquefies and your building ends up down there in the woods somewhere, and it's going to be a bad day for everybody. Anyway, maybe we can do a mistakes video. In the comments below, tell me what you want to see. Okay, because I'm actually working out here. I'm about to go start pick up more sticks. You know, I'm just trying to get these videos out based on what people have requested and what is going to be helpful for you to start your dream. Don't wait until it's too late. In fact, it's never too late, but it's always better if you start now. It's like the saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. So let's get started. Ask your questions. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. You can reach me at www.prosperityhomestead.org or in the comments below. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Thanks for watching.